and welcome to Classic Horror Painting. I'm your host, Stephen J. Bama, and I will be showing you the basics on how I do an oil painting start to finish. So, that's enough babble. Let's get started. And don't forget, if you like the content, please hit that like button right about here and subscribe. It helps a lot. Thank you.
Okay, for this first part, we're just going to take a little burnt umber, a little bit of medium, and we're just going to basically color in our picture, our shapes, start adding in our shadows, start to give this picture a little bit of dimension and a little bit of contrast so we can continue on. Okay, for this next part, we're going to basically kind of do the same thing, a little bit of burnt umber, a little bit of medium. We're just going to color in a little bit more areas. Slowly, each time, start to give it a little bit more detail. Looking at your reference if you need to. Just start working with it. Define the shapes a little bit more. And once that's dry, we're going to take a little bit more burnt umber, a little bit more medium, and we're just going to continue to define our shapes a little bit better, working the image, adding a little bit more shadow, sharpening up the image each time. Pretty simple. Now we're going to take some raw sienna, a little bit of medium, thin it out pretty good, give the whole face a nice thin, even wash of that, and this will be the beginning of the base that we're going to use for the flesh tone. Got to start somewhere, and this is where I always start. So we're just going to work that in around the whole face until it's nice covered, nice and even. Now while that sienna is nice and wet, we're going to take some white and smaller brush, and we're just going to start working in some of the detail. Usually start with the eyes and work outward from there. We're going to go to a little bit more of a close-up so you can see a little bit better what I'm doing. And here we are a little bit closer. Yes, I can see I'm going to need a better camera. Just working in that white, and I'm just defining my shapes a little bit better each time. Again, just going to work the white into the whole face till we get the whole thing covered. That's our base for our flesh tone. And we're just working till we get the whole face filled in. This can be pretty quick. Again, you can see I'm going pretty loose, pretty easy. This is not part where you have to be, pay attention to super detail. We'll get to that point later. And here we are just finishing up the rest of the face. This doesn't really look like a whole lot, but it's a necessary step. These first couple of steps seem a little bit tedious and a little bit repetitive, but it does give you a nice base to work from. And I think I probably could have left this part out because I'm working on the hair. That's a little bit off camera, but I thought I'd leave it in just for the hell of it. And now here we are back with some sienna and some medium thinned out pretty good, and I'm just going to start working in my shadows a little bit more. I have my reference picture sitting next to me off camera. I'm just kind of glancing in that and adding in some color, shadows. This is where you're going to start to give the face a little bit of depth and dimension, because eventually we've got to make it look round, and we have to give the nose, cheeks, some dimension, some shape, some contrast. This is where you start doing that. So you just continue to work that around and around and around until you're basically happy with it. So we just continue to work the sienna in and around. This is where, the painting starts to take a little bit of shape. Start playing with it a little bit more, start imagining what it's going to kind of look like. Some of these steps, you just kind of go back and forth. You add some shadows, add some highlights, add some shadows, add some highlights. Trust me, it gives the painting much more depth, much more interest, much deeper colors. Might not look all that exciting, but this is what you do. So once I'm putting in these colors and shadows, just trying to give the picture some basic shape and start to give a little bit of dimension, this is where you start looking at the painting, start imagining what colors you're going to use, what highlights, what accent colors. You don't necessarily have to go off of the colors from whatever source material that you're looking at. I mean, I am not looking at my picture of Chucky that I have for colors. I'm going to decide whatever colors that I want to do, probably basically based on the mood I'm feeling in that day. So this is just kind of one of those things where you just sort of play it by ear. So once that's done, I'm just going to go back to some basic white while that sienna is still wet with the medium in there, and just brush some white in and around, kind of fill in the area, mixing it with the shadows that I've already just put in. And once you get this step started and you get it all filled in, you can start to see that you're starting to give the face some highlights, some shadows, and it starts to take basic shape. Things start to look a little bit round, but we'll get a little bit more into that in the next few steps when you start adding quite a bit more detail, quite a bit more color, some underpainting to give like those large areas of his face some points of interest. Just left his big forehead just white with a little shadow on it might be a little bit boring. So we're going to do some underpainting, give it a little bit of texture, a little bit of depth. But this is basically where every one of my paintings starts, and we go from here. So you can see just these basic couple of steps. You can see a pretty big difference from where we started with the basic shadow blocking and basically drawing out the picture to where we are now, where you're actually starting to see a little bit of shape to the face, a little bit of dimension. Trust me, it'll get a whole lot better. This is just very, very basic. This is, one of my paintings I usually take probably maybe 4 weeks to finish one. I'm going to try to do this just a little bit simpler so it doesn't take quite so long. But still, I'm going to show you the basics. I don't think I'll be able to show you absolutely everything that I do because I'm going to have to condense this down into, say a 10 to 15 minute YouTube video. But I'll do the best I can. Try not to make it too long. Hopefully it's interesting for you.